Welcome, my friends, to our discussion today about PMP exam failure. Failure is a topic that should be tackled head on because it happens very often, happens all the time. Classic example of failure is I failed to spell the word session. I failed to spell a word that I know in my sleep. And if you look in the chat, you see, I failed to spell the word session. How could I make such a trivial mistake? Well, the good news is I know why I made the mistake. I was multitasking. So in my head, I'm typing session and I'm spelling the S with a C. It's a classic example. And honestly, I didn't do it intentionally. I know some of you think, yeah, you did it on purpose, Phil. No, I actually didn't. But failure happens all the time. But the most important thing about failure is we need to course correct. And as long as you course correct, you're okay. I cannot count how many students I have met that have told me, Phil, I failed the exam. Some of them let it roll off their back like a duck and, like water off a duck's back. And others, they keep beating themselves up. Why did you fail? You're dummy. I knew I couldn't depend on you. And they're talking to themselves like this. That is not the way to do it, my friends. If you fail the PMP exam, what I need you to understand is this. If the PMI gave you a go ahead to take the exam, then you absolutely can do it. So you got to pick yourself up and stop saying, I failed, I'm stupid, I'm dumb. I actually had a student in the UK, name withheld, but somewhere near Heathrow Airport. They know who they are. I'd give quizzes to the class, and this student, as opposed to just saying, "Oh, I got that wrong," he'll actually give himself a blow to the head and say, "Stupid, stupid." I'd see him doing this. I really didn't know how I could help him other than tell him, hey, go easy on yourself. Everyone makes mistakes. But some people take it personal. They never take the PMP exam after their first attempt. And that's not the way to do it. Like I said, you got to think like Edison, who said, I haven't failed. I've only learnt that there are 10,000 ways how not to build a light bulb. It's the mindedness that life is a series of experiments. I had a student who actually needed to take the exam multiple times. And I don't mean two, three, four, five, six. I'm talking about 8 times. But that student is now a PMP in a very gainful employment. You think that person is thinking about failure that happened? No, that person is soaring ahead. So I came on today to encourage you. Those of you that have taken the PMP, you see, this is the thing about the community. When you fail the exam, all you're going to hear is crickets because people don't like tackling failure head on. But I love failure. I love tackling it head on. I don't love failure just because I love to fail. I love failure because there's a lesson to be learned in the failure, and you get stronger and more resilient. I remember my very first PMP exam training. It was a disaster. In fact, if I could go back in time, I would go rescue the poor people who were listening to me. It was horrible. But I failed so badly. I didn't want to be there again. I didn't want to fail again. So I practiced and I was able to perfect my act. And I had entities such as many you've heard me mention, but I'll just play the slide. Let's just roll the slide. Enough of the story. Let's roll the slide. So, welcome to PMP exam success. It's always a pleasure to be speaking to you about this PMP exam thing that we're all working on. My name is Phill. I will be your host today, taking you through very quickly the trajectory to PMP exam success. Many of the entities I was about to mention are on the screen here, everyone from the FBI and NASA and the US Army. So, how did I go from failing my first PMP training? Because I think it was a failure. my very first PMP training I delivered. It was awful. It was so boring. I would have gone back to rescue those poor people. But anyway, fast forward to today, I've learned my lessons, and now I'm presenting to you PMP exam failure Stampout. This is a seminar. You don't want to miss it. If you fail the PMP exam, I am marking 20 years as a PMP on the 25th of June. I remember it just like yesterday. And one of the deals that I made was if God could get me out of that exam alive, I will tell everyone about the crazy PMP exam. And I've kept my promise because I came out of the exam alive. I didn't I didn't fail it. And I've kept my promise. And the moment I got out of the exam, I started helping people. Found myself in Honeywell as various roles, program analyst, program manager, project manager, and I ended up training over 50 of my colleagues. So I want to give back to the community, my friends. If you know of anyone who has failed the PMP exam, please invite them. Go to the link tinyurl.com/failure stamp out. If that doesn't work, look in the description. This is a free session. What I'm going to be doing is breaking down for those who have failed the exam how they can get back on track. I'm going to be sharing a tool that is AI powered that will help you find where you got it wrong and help you realign. Okay. So we're going to be doing that on Saturday. Again, it's a free session. You don't want your friends who have failed the exam to miss it. So kindly share this on social media. If you can share this video, very much appreciate it. Just want to help people who have found it hard. So step one, if you have found difficulty on the PMP exam, is to understand your result. You cannot do this efficiently without understanding the 35 tasks associated with the PMP exam. So I just say that right off the bat. If you haven't intentionally studied the PMP exam content outline, today I'm going to give you a few insights that will put you on the right trajectory. But let's talk about the genesis. Even before you took the PMP exam, for those of you who might have failed, mastering the exam is important. So I want to urge you to leave no stone unturned. You must present your information mentally back to yourself and say, does it check the box? Have I truly mastered that area, or am I still lost? And the areas that you need to get really good at, very simple. I'm going to go over them one by one real quick. Number one, you need to understand the 5 process groups. And I mean like a practitioner of them. You also need to understand the 10 areas of knowledge. And if you have a hazy idea of the areas of knowledge, that's a problem right there. You also need to have a solid mindset for a PMP. And this is encapsulated in the PMBOK 7 principles that you see at the bottom. Okay? So initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, and controlling and closing. The 10 knowledge areas you see on the screen and the 12 principles. This is going to help your thinking. Then you have to dissect it even deeper. You have to be able to apply those principles at the bottom, right? Stewardship, collaboration, all of that stuff. You got to then apply those principles to this. So every step that you take in project management, you got to apply those principles. You got to apply mentally those principles to develop project charter, develop project management plan, all the way to number 49, monitor stakeholder engagement. You get what I'm saying? So it's one thing to be able to parrot off principles, but it's another thing to be able to pragmatically apply them. And this is what is missing for a lot of people. It's the application of this stuff to the real world that's missing. All right? So here are the missing pieces. 5 process groups, 10 knowledge areas, 12 principles, 49 processes. Another piece that is missing from a lot of people's vocabulary and internalization is the agile mindset and the core values. Individuals and interactions over processes and tools. What does that really mean? Well, that means people solve problems. Processes should enable them, not hinder them. You see, it's a mindedness. If you don't have this philosophy, you could struggle on some agile questions. Second one is really just focus on delivering value, not excessive paperwork. So if you're looking at a question that's in an agile environment and you're presented with big old bogus documents and you select those as answers, you could get your answer wrong. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation just means engage with users frequently. And you got to understand centralized leadership in predictive and traditional PMBOK setting versus decentralized leadership in the world of agile. Responding to change over following a plan just means adaptability leads to success in fast changing environments. As Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until they're punched in the face. So in the world of agile, you got to be able to adapt. You got to value that over following a plan. The other piece that you need to know really well for your exam, I'm going to cover this really quickly, is the philosophies behind the Agile Manifesto principles. Highest priority should be to satisfy the customer, early and continuous delivery of valuable product, MVP. Welcome changing requirements even late. It didn't say do the changing requirements. It said welcome them. And even this philosophy, it can be applied to PMBOK. In the world of PMBOK, PMI wants you to welcome the changes and not just to shut down the customer. So there are a lot of trick questions that people get wrong because it sounds like, well, this has already been discussed and we know this change will never be done. And if you choose, tell the customer, no, this change is not going to be worked on, you'll likely get that question wrong. So these philosophies are important. Delivering working product frequently so you can get feedback, business people working together daily in an agile environment, building projects around motivated people, giving them space and letting them do what they need to do, be self organizing, understanding that face to face is important, but co location is also important mentally. Number seven, understanding that in the world of agile, it's all about definition of done. It's all about getting to the end of the sprint and really having achieved what you set out to do. Agile processes promote sustainable development and a mindset of not killing the team. You see, where you would have done overtime in traditional, in this agile world, it would be foolish to do overtime. Why is that? Because your velocity is going to end up being skewed if all you're doing is looking for more and more, as they say in corporate America, throw some bodies at the project. And that's the wrong way to do it in an agile lens. Continuous attention to technical excellence is going to save you a whole lot of fan cleaning. Because muda, the waste, that happens when you don't pay attention to technical excellence, when your designs are shoddy. Great Steve Jobs says design is not what it looks like or what it feels like. Design is how it works. Design goes far beyond what we're looking at on the surface. Steve understood that. And to be agile, you got to be thinking like that, right? Number 10 just says keep it simple. Cut out the muda. Maximize the amount of muda that you cut out. Muda is waste in the world of lean. Cut out the muda as much as you can. If you can do this, if you can do this amount of work and get this amount of value, why do you want to do this amount of work to get this amount of value? You get what I'm saying? So you got to cut out the extra steps. You got to cut out the unnecessary work. It's a mindedness. You got to be like a Muda hunter, like, the Muda sniffer dog is going to sniff out the waste. Have you heard of Tim Wood? Just Google Tim Woods. He's not Tiger's cousin. Tim Woods, the 7 horrible places we find waste. Google Tim Woods. You'll learn more about him. All right, number 11. The best architectures, requirements, and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. So let the team self-organize. And finally, number 12, at regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective. They tune and adjust. And this isn't just the retrospective. This needs to be a lifestyle. So if you haven't gotten down the philosophies, my friends, of the values and the principles, you will struggle on the PMP exam. And a lot of people who have found it hard did not internalize the principles. They also did not internalize the 12 PMI principles at the bottom. Okay? If you haven't watched my free 50-hour set of videos, go on down to pmp.pmradio.org. I know I'm giving you a lot of things to check out, but I'm going to put it in the chat. pmp.pmradio.org. Okay? All right? Right there. pmp.pmradio.org. Type it in and you'll be able to watch over 50 hours of videos on YouTube. So there's a lot of loose screws in some people's PMP prep. And another piece that's missing is understanding Scrum. When you approach Scrum, I like approaching Scrum just looking at it as a way of solving problems, complex problems, problems that are hard to predict. So in this example, this is not a super complex problem. It could be, but it's a family of five. They're back from travel. It's been very long and arduous, and they're trying to decide what to eat. And, in some families, everyone wants something different. Hello. I don't know if you've ever been there, but I have. Everyone wants something different. So they got a product owner over there putting together all the requests into a backlog. They've hired a chef and his team, and the chef's team, they need to decide how are we going to deliver this food to this family. So they have sprint planning where they decide what are we going to work on first within a time box. And you could say the time box is anywhere between 4 weeks or less. And I know 4 weeks is quite an elaborate timeline for cooking, isn't it? But in the world of Scrum, we say that the time box is 4 weeks or less. But most organizations in the world average out at somewhere around 2 weeks. So imagine the team eventually decides what they're going to work on in the time box, the first time box. We call that a sprint backlog. They're already in the sprint technically, and they begin working. But daily, they're going to have a sync up meeting to understand what exactly can I pick that someone has finished that I need to kind of take and run with, like a relay race? Or are there any impediments that exist? And just hearing about the impediments is going to help you as a team member understand that someone is able to help you, and you can have a meeting after the daily scrum to iron these things out. So the three questions are for generally young teams. Teams that are older in it could just go with the flow, or they could do walk the board. But the summary is the daily scrum is not a status meeting. This is important for your PMP. If you ever got the question, what is a daily scrum? Certainly not a status meeting. In the middle of the sprint, we also carry out backlog refinement, which means we're looking into the backlog. We're deciding what needs to be broken down. What can we do in the next sprint? And this is something the product owner needs to spearhead and run with, because the product owner is the custodian of the product backlog. Remember that the Scrum Master is really more of a coach. The developers, not to say it's software, it could be any industry, but we use the term developers. But you need to understand the roles, okay? When all is said and done and you get an increment or potentially shippable increment, the next thing that should happen is the sprint review. In the sprint review, as you can see here, the family is going to sample the food. They're going to give feedback to the team that's cooking the food, and they may make some additional suggestions or requests for the next sprint. The final thing that happens is the sprint retrospective. And this is where the team looks in the rearview mirror. Now, I've said a lot. It sounds very basic, but the philosophy behind all of these needs to be transparency, inspection, and adaptation. The team is transparent. They're always inspecting what they're doing, self-inspection, doing peer reviews. They're working together. They need T-shaped scales, which you probably have read in the Agile Practice Guide, another book you should be looking at. Broken comb, paint drip, those are words that you might have heard in the world of Agile. But you got to be able to put it all together. And some folks haven't studied Scrum organically. So you could be facing a question that is very Scrum driven, but it actually could sound predictive. And if you're not able to decode, oh, this is a hybrid question, you may find it hard. So these are some of the philosophies that you really need to get down if you want to do well on the exam. So when I say mastering the PMP exam content, leaving no stone unturned, this is what I'm talking about. You got to understand all aspects. All right. So the outline, the PMP exam content outline, that's key. You got to read PMI's PMBOK guide, master the terminology, review the agile pieces I just showed you, tools, techniques, inputs, and outputs. It's not terminology people like mentioning anymore. But I want to wager that if you don't know the key inputs, project charter, project management plan, risk register, and so on. I could go on mentioning like tons and tons of them. But if you don't know the key ones, you will struggle. You'll struggle. Let me go over the key ones real quick with you, okay? Because even though I'm having the class on Saturday, which is a free course, by the way, tinyurl.com/failure stampout. But even though I'm doing that, I know some people are going to take the exam tomorrow. And I want to help those. Or some people are going to watch this after the fact and say, well, my exam's tomorrow, Phill. I missed the webinar. How can you help me for tomorrow? So I'm trying to help people in advance. Okay. So as far as what you get out of each process, I'm going to cover this very, very quickly with you. So project charter, develop project charter, you get the project charter. Develop project management plan, you get a project management plan. Direct to manage project work, you get deliverables. Manage project knowledge, you get a lessons learned register. Monitor and control project work, you get a work performance report. Perform integrated change control, you get an update to your change log. You also get approved change requests. And from close project or phase, you get a final product, service, or result transition. Plan scope management, you get a scope management plan and a requirements management plan. Collect requirements, you get a requirements traceability matrix. Define scope, you get a project scope statement. Create WBS, you get a WBS and a WBS dictionary. And together with the scope statement, you could see a scope baseline. Validate scope, you get accepted deliverables. Control scope, you just get updates to a lot of stuff. You could get updates to project management plan components or updates to project documents. In plan schedule management, you're going to get a schedule management plan, define activities. You're going to get an activity list, activity attributes, and a milestone list. Sequence activities, you're going to get project schedule network diagrams. Estimate activity durations, you're going to get duration estimates. Develop schedule, you're going to get a project schedule and a schedule baseline. Control schedule, you're going to get schedule forecasts. Plan cost management, you're going to get a cost management plan. Estimate cost, you're going to get cost estimates. Determine budget, you're going to get a cost baseline. Control cost, you're going to get cost forecasts. Plan quality management, you're going to get a quality management plan and quality metrics. Manage quality, you're going to get a quality report and test and evaluation documents. Control quality, you're going to get verified deliverables. All this is from memory, by the way. I'm not reading a book, so might take a little bit of time for my brain to boot up for some of these. Plan resource management, you get a resource management plan and a team charter. Estimate activity resources, you get resource requirements, and you get a resource breakdown structure. Acquire resources, you get physical resource assignments and project team assignments. Develop team, you can have enterprise environmental factors updates. And there's something else you get from here, which is like an update to team performance assessments, or maybe the team performance assessments themselves. Manage team, I don't really think you get anything of significance other than just updating your employee records. And control resources, again, it's updates to plans. And, actually for all of these, It's really updates to the project management plan and project documents. Plan communications management, you get a communications management plan. Manage communications, you get project reports or project communications, actually, project communications. Monitor communications, again, updates to any of the project management plan components or updates to project documents. Going over to risk, you have a risk management plan from Plan Risk Management. You have a risk register from Identify Risks and a risk report as well. And those are just updated all throughout the rest of risk. Going over to procurement management, you have the procurement management plan, you have the procurement statement of work, you have make or buy decisions, you have procurement strategy. There's a lot of stuff. Actually, there's 7 unique items from here. So you might want to dig a little bit deeper into that one. I think I've just given you about 4, right? You also have source selection criteria, so that makes it about 5. Conduct procurement, you have agreements from here, you have selected sellers. From control procurement, you have closed procurement. From identify stakeholders, you have the stakeholder register. Planned stakeholder engagement, you have the stakeholder engagement plan. And from these two, you have business as usual, updates. So these are going to be a project management plan update or a project document update. So, my friends, over the past number of minutes, I've never really done this on camera because I've always been time conscious and wanting to run off. But it is of the essence now to help those who have been struggling with it, because I know a lot of people struggle with these outputs and inputs, and it's just something people don't want to study. And I understand that. But I would highly recommend rewinding this video, going back over everything I said. Make sure you know those key documents. So important. I will actually be going back to this video to carve out more from this video because I've been avoiding doing this, truth be told. Okay? All right. So we have covered a lot of the 49 processes. I've basically given you a blueprint for what you get from each one. Understanding principles and frameworks, you got to grasp the underlying PMI principles, the agile mindset. You got to be able to relate all of this stuff back to real world. Connect frameworks to situational decision making. Cultivate the right mindset, approach questions analytically, not by recall alone. And you got to be objective and avoid biases. Remember, when PMI says escalate, a lot of times the escalate clause is a red herring because you can't escalate everything. You got to be able to think for yourself and take action. All right. And how do you develop resilience? By taking a lot of quizzes. When you break it down, the PMP exam is broken down into 35 tasks. In fact, when you're looking at your result, it has 35 tasks. So my question to you is, why are you not taking at least 35 discrete quizzes for each task? Well, you can go to pmpdoctor.com and you can begin taking quizzes for each task today. We have 35 quizzes on there. This needs to be part of your PMP prep. I know a lot of people are using other tools that beat them up and make them feel worthless. Well, this won't do that to you. This will actually help you understand the 35 tasks because it's based on the 35 tasks. Let's cover the 35 tasks real quick. Number 1, as a project manager, you should be able to manage conflict. And you got to understand the Thomas Kilmann conflict mode instrument. You got to understand when you say avoid or smooth or accommodate or collaborate, problem solve. Those need to make sense to you. Number 2, you got to understand all about leadership. So vision and mission, understanding the Hersey Blanchard model, understanding that people have different ways they want to be motivated. You don't motivate everyone the same way. Things like that. I can't show you that in 2 minutes. That stuff, you have to read it, you have to internalize it. Number 3, supporting team performance. Again, it's more of an agile mindedness. So you appraise team member performance and you support them in their growth, and then you give them responsibilities. You give them things that they could be accountable for, right? We're talking about the world of hybrid as well. What I hear from a lot of people is that the exam was heavily hybrid. And as a result of it being hybrid, it throws them off because you got agile speak and you got predictive speak, and they don't know how to answer the question. So you really need to get into the philosophy and the psychology of team performance. Also, empowerment, like I said, you gotta give them accountability items. It says evaluate demonstration of task accountability. You got to determine and bestow levels of decision making authority. And then you got to ensure people are trained. You got to ensure that is part of what PMI wants you to demonstrate. It's a task, task 500 people. Task six, because I number them 1 to 35, task six is building a team. Here, you need to understand the 5 stages of team development: forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. And you need to understand in the world of Agile, adjourning is generally not liked, right? Because we want to keep our team together and build. It's not on a project by project basis, right? It says build projects around motivated individuals. So we build a project around the team, not the other way around. In the world of predictive, we build we build a team around a project. But in this world of agile, it's different. So you need to be able to put on that flame on, flame off, flame on agile, flame on predictive, or flame on hybrid. You see. So when you talk about how teams are built in predictive, how they're built in agile, the adjourning stage happens all the time in predictive, but in agile, it rarely does. Addressing and removing impediments, obstacles, and blockers is important. You're going to get questions upon this about this without a doubt. I'm sure that the PMI, they're going to give you questions about impediments, obstacles, and blockers. They're going to give you questions about risk. They're going to give you questions about uncertain events that are of a positive nature. So you got to be able to roll with this one. Number 8, negotiating project agreements. It's negotiating everything, not just money. Number 9, collaborating with stakeholders. Again, it's a mindedness. What good is it if you always tell your stakeholder, no, we can't do that. No, that's not going to work. That's not the answer. And that's why a lot of folks, they get those questions on stakeholders wrong, because they think they're being an assertive PM, but they're not collaborating with the customer, you see. So you got to understand the psychology. Number 10, build shared understanding. You got to break down the situation to identify the root cause of a misunderstanding. And then you got to survey all parties and make sure everyone's on the same page. You got to engage and support virtual teams. You got to understand what a fishbowl window means. It's terminology in the Agile Practice Guide. Fishbowl window concept. You got to understand that. Also, defining team ground rules. You got to understand ground rules. What exactly are they? When you hear team charter, what is the difference between a team charter and a project charter? What is the difference between a project charter and a team agreement? You see, team charter, ground rules, team contract, social contract, all the same thing. So if you get questions that are talking about team contract, social contract, and you don't understand it, you're in trouble. Okay? All right. But you can close all these gaps quite easily. Number 13, mentoring of relevant stakeholders. Stakeholders are people who could be impacted by the project, or who could impact the project, or think they could be impacted. So you need to be mentoring them, right? And just remember, mentoring is different from coaching. Not that you'll be tested on this, but mentoring is giving prescriptive advice based on your experience. Coaching is not giving advice, is bringing the answer out of the client. Number 14, promoting team performance through EI, emotional intelligence. You got to be emotionally intelligent as a PM. I once worked for a manager that was very, very, very low in EI. He got a glass container, threw it on the wall, and yelled obscenities in the middle of the day. Everyone heard him, and it made the team scared. Talk about very poor EI. So you don't want to be like that. Emotional intelligence is your ability to bridle your emotions and influence the emotions of others. Note, I didn't say control, it's influence. All right, let's move into the process domain. Going into the process domain, this will give the 15th task: executing the project with urgency to deliver business value. So the PMI, they want to test you on, do you know when agile is a good approach? Do you know when incremental or iterative is better? Do you know when predictive is better? So you got to get those four down pat, my friends. And the PMI, when they give you these questions, they never give you throwaway questions. The questions are all heavily laden with language and thought. It's not an easy test. So you got to understand these four things, my friends. I would say go into the Agile Practice Guide. What is the difference, though? Let me see if you're able to tell me what's the difference between incremental and agile. Put it in the chat if any of you knows. I know some of you always think, oh, the Phil's not live. Well, I'm actually live right now. Well, I'll give you the timestamp so you know. The time is 9:02 p.m. Eastern on the 12th of June. So this, if you're watching live, it's live. I don't know if you're watching after that time frame, it's not live. But jokes apart, you got to understand that agile is frequent small deliveries. Incremental is frequent smaller deliveries, but you're not repeating till correct. Incremental is good for discrete items. See, there's a difference here. And then iterative, you deliver one time. You do the work until it's correct, but you deliver one time. Predictive, you deliver one time. You do the work one time, you deliver one time. So I would advise you to understand PMI's terminology because it's tricky, right? The difference between something that is purely incremental and something that is incremental and iterative. Okay. Number 16, manage communications. It's a no brainer. We do this all the time. The PM spends 70 to 90% of the time communicating. Okay. All right, let's move on. Next one is engage stakeholders. So you already know who a stakeholder is, but this is just a reminder that you got to keep them engaged. Engage your stakeholders. Oops. I think I'm ahead of myself. I apologize. Assess and manage risk is next. So this is determine risk management options. For this, you got to understand the 7 steps in risk, plan risk management, identify risks, all the stuff I showed you a few moments ago. Now we come to engage stakeholders. This is where you will put on your stakeholder engagement hat. And you got to remember this is both agile and predictive. Let me talk about this real quick. So I know some folks, they may not have studied the stakeholder engagement assessment matrix. They may not have studied the influence impact grid. I want to urge you to do that, my friends, because PMI, they can come from any angle. I still hear people saying, "Well, Phill, I had earned value." A lot of people say I don't get it, but I got it. Why did I have the luck of getting earned value? And I tell them, well, PMI has a big repository of questions. You can't bank on Joe Blow's exam and say, well, Joe didn't get it, so I'm probably not going to. No, you'll be shocked. I have people crying about formula questions still. I'm telling you. So this is why it's big. And this is why I'm doing this seminar on Saturday. Okay. It's a free seminar. Like I said, I'm going to be 20 years as a PMP. I'm dating myself, but it is what it is. Go on down to tinyurl.com/failure stampout. If you fail the PMP exam, I need you to be in the program because I need you to be a PMP. I want to help those of you who feel all alone. Everyone gives rave reviews. Yay, you're a PMP. Oh, this is what I did. This is what I did. But when people fail the exam, they ain't getting no love. And it's sad. And I see it all over social media, the LinkedIns, the Reddits, the Facebooks of this world. Everyone loves a PMP who passed. But the moment you fail, they're like, oh, don't contaminate me. I want to get what you have. And that's not how to do it. That's why I want to help people that have failed the exam. Okay. I've failed exams before, but I bounced back and I know what I did to bounce back. And I've been fortunate enough not to fail any of PMI's exams. So I know the secret sauce, and I've helped thousands of people to do this. So if you have questions, if you need support, show up on the 14th of June. This is one of the few entirely free seminars I do. I think I've done I've done a full week of free seminars for those who were unemployed. And this is a seminar for those who have failed the exam. All right. And maybe you're working another PMI exam. Maybe it's not PMP. You're also welcome. Okay. All right. So we were on assess and manage risk, engage stakeholders, and now we're on to plan and manage budget. So this takes us into the world of earned value. You got to remember that you could get questions that ask you to calculate SPI, CPI, CVOSV, as well as interpret what it means. Let me give you the summary. Here's the summary with earned value. If earned value, if EV is greater than PV or AC, that's great. That's great performance. If EV is greater than PV or AC, that means you are performing above normal. You're performing above what you anticipated. Now, on the flip side, if earned value is less than PV or AC, that is actually not great. That is actually sad. That's sad and it's bad. Bad and sad. So if earned value is less than PV or less than AC, you're in trouble. It means that you're either late or you're over budget. There's a simple way of remembering it. Now, if earned value is equal to, right smack dab equal to PV or AC, you are on target. On target. This is going to help some of you. It's going to be a game changer for some of you because when you look at a question and it's a big old question, it says earned value is 1 million, this, and plan value is this, that. What is the project? Sadly, some people take out their calculators, and that is the time suck that the question writers have put in weight for some poor people that don't know. You don't even need to whip out the calculator. You look at earned value. Oh, earned value is bigger. I know what's up with this. Earned value is bigger than actual cost. Okay, then I am under budget. If earned value is larger than actual cost, I'm under budget. Earned value equal to actual cost, I'm right on budget. Earned value is less than actual cost. Oh, I'm over budget. You see what I'm saying? So there are a lot of shortcuts that could help you even when you come across these questions that look quite intimidating. All right, don't be intimidated. They look scary, but they're shortcuts. All right, number 20, plan and manage the schedule. Again, go into the critical path topic. Yes, recently I've heard people say, oh, I got one critical path. It's not gone away, it's still there. But you also need to understand in context, crash in, fast tracking, that kind of stuff. All right, number 21, plan and manage quality of products or deliverables. Quality is important. Fitness for use, conformance to requirements, customer satisfaction, and Kaizen. Number 22, plan and manage scope. You got to understand your 6 steps in scope. Plan scope management, collect requirements, define scope, create WBS, validate scope, and control scope. You got to really understand what are the artifacts. So go back, rewind when I broke down all the artifacts. For those of you who are just coming, you might have missed when I broke down the entire 49 process set and the major outputs of each. Just rewind it. It is going to wildly help some of you. Okay. Moving on from plan and manage scope, integrating of project planning activities. You integrate even in the world of Agile. In fact, if you haven't read pages 90 to 95 in the Agile Practice Guide, please do that because it will help you see the knowledge areas through an Agile lens. And honestly, PMI, that's one of the best practice guides they've ever written. It's very, very helpful, especially to a layman that doesn't understand the inner workings of Agile. So if you haven't read the Agile Practice Guide and you're a PMI member, it's free for you. Download it, read it. All right, number 24, manage project changes. It's a no-brainer. You got to do this all the time. The way you manage changes in the world of Agile is built into a lot of the frameworks. Now, the way you do it in the world of predictive is You got to first of all get informal writing, then you got to log it in the change log, then you got to analyze it with the team, then you got to put your findings together, send it to change control board. Change control board's going to analyze it. They may ask you questions, they may ask the customer questions, go back and forth, eventually make a decision, put on hold, put it on pending, or approve it or reject it. And then you got to put all that stuff into a change log again. And then you got to communicate to stakeholders. And if it was approved, the team has got to do it. So there are many steps when it comes to managing project change. So if you haven't read that in any guide, you need to find somewhere to read those steps. Or just rewind this video, listen to what I said again. In procurement management, there are three simple steps. You got to plan it, you got to conduct it, and you got to control it. So in the world of agile, we don't really talk about the inner workings of procurements because there are some team members who may be involved in that, or there may be a department that assists the team. But it doesn't take away the need for procurement. It doesn't take away the need for these contract types, fixed price, cost reimbursable, time and materials. There's always a fortunate person that gets a PMI question on procurement. And I'm talking about contract types. Which one has the most risk, the least risk? Which one should you work on? The more you understand the inner workings of FP-EPA, FPIF, right? All that stuff, FP, the more you understand all that stuff, the better it is for you on the exam. All right, number 26, manage project artifacts. Chat into me if you are awake and not under the influence of some inebriating drink. Chat into me, what are the three artifacts in the world of Scrum that are very popular? Or if you are too under the influence, I'm joking. Come on now. Don't take me seriously. You take me too seriously. All right. But chat into me if you know the three from Scrum and if you know the many from the world of predictive. Chat in one or two. Even if you're watching after the fact, put a comment in there. So in managed project artifacts, we have the product backlog, right? We have the sprint backlog. And you got to know how these work, right? Which of these are you able to change, right? And the increment stuff, right? You should know these are all artifacts. And then in the world of predictive, we have too many to name. I named all of them when I was going through the high level of what you get out. Many of those, you could look at those as artifacts. Okay? All right, number 27, determine the appropriate project methodology, methods, and practices. This, again, honestly, you got to go into your agile practice guide. When to use predictive, when to use an agile approach, when to use an incremental approach, when to use iterative. I cannot overstate the importance. Number 28, establish project governance structure. Governance, as PMI would say, is a framework within which authorities exercise. So you got to think, okay, what does a governance model of my project look like? And then this will make sense. There's got to be escalation path. There's got to be thresholds. There's got to be authority limits. That's really what they're talking about. Number 29, manage project issues. What exactly is an issue? It's a materialized risk. So you need to understand that. Now, when you have a risk, you attack it in a different way. When you have an issue, it gets put into the issue log, but you got to work on dealing with the issue in a sensible, methodical manner. And there's actually a framework that I have taught. It's called DIGCIV, DIGCIV. I actually wrote a book about DIGCIV. But you got to follow a framework. And let me very quickly show you DIGCIV because it's going to help you on the exam as well. So in any problem you have in life or on the PMP exam, step one is to define what is the problem. What is the problem? Define it. If you're running late, okay, I'm running late. But that's not the root cause. Step two, you got to understand, why are you running late? Oh, it's because a report I should have written, I haven't, and I'm still working on it. You determine the root cause. And then the next step is to generate alternatives. If you get these three as you're answering PMP questions, what exactly is the problem in the question? What's the problem statement? Then what is the root cause? And then go into gear determining why that root cause is happening, generating the alternatives, right? How can I get rid of this root cause? How can I get rid of this problem? If you can do that as you're seeing all the PMP questions coming up, it's really going to help you. And step four is going to be a lot easier because you're just going to say, okay, based on my logic, it's option B that really takes care of the problem. It's like a stakeholder is unhappy with what you have delivered. The stakeholder has signed a deliverable acceptance form. What do? Tell the stakeholder, tough luck, buddy, live with it. That is never going to be the best answer. Or walk away is never going to be. You must find a solution that makes the stakeholder happy. You get what I'm saying? So, with that in mind, when you understand that step four on the PMP exam is always going to be a solution that takes the problem away, you won't choose silly things like tell the stakeholder no or ignore the email, things like that. And believe it or not, people choose reject the stakeholder's request a lot. And it's not the best answer because your stakeholder still isn't satisfied. You get what I'm saying? Okay. Now, it could be that I write a crazy question where that is the only option you have, but I want to wager that on the PMP exam, you got better options than say no, say no, say no. Saying no doesn't help, right? Or punishing the team. That's an example of don't do that. Don't choose that on the PMP. All right, step 5 and 6 is implement in your mind's eye. Think about it. If I did this in the real world, how will it go down? Will it solve the problem? And if the answer is no, don't choose it. And then double check with PMI standards. Remember, I showed you the PMI 12 principles: stewardship, collaboration, engagement, all these ones at the bottom. These ones right here: collaboration, engagement, values, systems thinking, leadership, tailoring, quality, navigating complexity, risk, resilience, and change. Yeah, if you apply that thinking to your questions, you'll probably end up getting a lot more questions right. Okay. So, over the past number of minutes, we've been talking about dealing with those issues. And I just taught you Dixiv. If you want to know more about Dixiv, go to dixiv.com, digciv.com. You can grab my book on problem solving. It will help you wildly in the real world, especially if you're working with a team that doesn't know how to solve problems. That's a problem solving book right there. All right, number 30, ensure knowledge transfer for project continuity. Make sure tacit knowledge is being shared, explicit knowledge is being shared across the firm. Number 31, plan and manage the project or phase closure or transitions. There's a method to the madness. You manage phase closure, project closure with intentionality. You don't let the team go. That's not the first thing you should do, right? And you don't say, oh, write lessons learned. You should have been writing your lessons learned all the way through the project. So you could collate lessons learned, right? But you have a number of things to do as you're closing the project. They're very well explained in the PMBOK Guide, 6th edition. Number 32, plan and manage project compliance. Compliance is big in a lot of projects: construction, engineering, mining projects, even HR projects. The whole idea about compliance is big these days. Number 33, evaluate and deliver project benefits and value. Understand that, now we've moved into the business domain. So in this one, you're really more of a product owner, if you will, and your job is to ensure that value and benefits are delivered as intelligently as possible, as time consciously as possible. Because we have cost of delay, we have penalties. If you're late to market, just try. You be late to market, and you're going to have another Samsung versus Apple situation going on, because Apple, they were right on the money. And then came Samsung, seeing what Apple had done, and they were late. But they couldn't help look at the shiny objects, no pun intended, looking at what Apple had done. So they borrowed some features. Had to be settled in court. Not a pretty scenario. All right, number 34, evaluate and address business environment changes for impact on scope. You got to be looking at your business environment and saying what is new, what is changing, how can I take what needs to be harnessed and introduce that into our project, into a feature set, so that I make the most out of what is happening in the marketplace. A great example is AI. Everyone at first was like, "Oh, this AI stuff is weird. It's creepy." And then you had the colleges kind of being scared about AI, and now they turn the tables on everyone. The colleges are now charging crazy money for AI courses. Colleges are now saying, after all, we might just be able to live with this AI thing. Let's just set some parameters for students. Now everyone's using AI, right? And that's what number 34 is talking about. You got to evaluate what's happening in the market. You got to seize that to your advantage. You got to put that into your backlog. Final thing here, my friends, and I'll let you jump off the call. Final thing is support organizational change. So if the organization is going through a monumental change and your project is in the center, you should have that presence of mind, the understanding that people go through the Kubler-Ross model, the Kubler-Ross, the J curve, right? So you got to come with empathy. You got to evaluate the impact of the change on your project or the impact of your project on the firm. Some project managers just become enemies because their projects are highly visible and people feel they're going to lose their job. Like, the AI project managers, I feel sorry for them because nobody likes what they're working on. It's going to replace them. One of my buddies, my buddy Ed, said there's a McDonald's near him. There's no human. Oh, there's one human. Everything else is machines. Everything else is machines. Imagine that. Anyway, over the past number of minutes, my friends, I've been combing through what you need to succeed on the PMP. This is a precursor to my free session on Saturday, 14th of June, 1 p.m. Eastern. It's called PMP Exam Failure Stampout. I hate failure getting away. I hate people walking away from the exam saying, "Oh, the PMI, the PMP hurt me." Or as they say, it hurted me. PMP exam hurt. No, we're going to hurt the exam. We're going to smack it in the jaw. That's what we're going to do. You're not going to be a 98-pound weakling running away from the exam. You're going to deal it a blow on the next time you get into the exam. Remember, your buddy Phill is sending you to the PMP exam. Boom! Give it one in the jaw. You can do the alley shuffle. PMP exam is going to be scared, going to be running away by the time you're done. That's the person I want to see. Not the one cowering in the corner. "Oh, I'm scared of the PMP." Don't be scared. You know what you should do the day before the exam? Chill. Watch a movie. Take it easy. Have the mindedness of success. Understand that you've already done everything you need to. I tell my students by the time it's 7 p.m. the night before, what are you still doing? Look, you need to free up the bandwidth so you can think. Have you ever been in an exam and you're not able to think? You know the questions. I've had a student, true story. This student, she went into the exam, she knew the questions, but she couldn't think. It's sad. She did a red eye, studying crazily. And then morning came and she was still studying at 6. It's curtains. Don't do that to yourself. All right. Thank you very much, my friends. I'm going to put that link in the chat one more time. This time I will spell session correctly, I hope. All right. Let me see you nice and early on Saturday. tinyurl.com/failure stampout. Okay. Do you have any questions for me before I jump off the call? Questions, comments, concerns? This is a great opportunity for you to ask questions if you're stuck. My friends on Instagram, I see you. I'm sorry I hadn't checked on you earlier. Anosh, I see you. Anyone else got questions, concerns? Now's a good time. All right. I don't see any. It means I did a good job breaking down how to kill this thing. Well, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you on Saturday. You take care. I wish you all the very best, my friends. Bye for now.